The apartment on the Upper West Side wasn't much to look at from the outside. A narrow building on a quiet block, 11 years of a regional bank occupying the ground floor commercial unit, 2 bedrooms upstairs that nobody had lived in since I bought the place in 2004. I never told anyone about it. Not my friends, not my neighbors, not my family. Shh. Not even Gerald. I bought it quietly, the way I did most things in my life. Paid for it entirely from my own account. Savings built across 30 years of careful living. A small inheritance from my father that I never touched until I had somewhere worth putting it. I filed every document with my attorney, Catherine Marsh, the same week I signed the purchase deed, notarized, timestamped, filed under my name alone. I was 61 years old when I bought it. I told myself it was an investment. What it really was a plan. A quiet one. The kind you make when you've spent enough years watching other people spend everything they have and end up with nothing. The bank paid rent for 11 years without a single missed payment. I paid my taxes. I maintained the property. I told nobody. And then our parents died. 18 months apart, and Gerald called me on a Tuesday evening and cried on the phone for the first time since we were children. And I thought, maybe this is the thing that changes us. Maybe grief is the thing that finally makes us brothers again. I was wrong. But I didn't know that yet. We had drifted the way brothers drift when life pulls in different directions. Different cities, different circles, different versions of adulthood. We were never enemies. We were just distant in the way that becomes permanent if you let it. For 20 years we let it. After our mother went, that changed. Gerald called more. I answered more. We started talking on Sunday mornings. Nothing serious, just coffee and conversation, the way men talk when they're getting older and starting to count what they still have. He visited twice in the past year. I made dinner both times. We sat in my kitchen and talked about our father, about the neighborhood we grew up in, about things neither of us had said to anyone in years. I thought we were rebuilding something real. 6 months ago, I had a cardiac episode. Minor, the doctors said, enough to spend 2 nights in the hospital. Gerald drove 3 hours to be there. He sat in the chair beside my bed and held my hand and said, "You scared me, Ray." I believed him. 3 weeks after I came home, he filed a fraudulent legal claim against my Manhattan property. I didn't know any of that yet on the morning I drove into the city to meet with the bank manager. The lease was ending in 6 weeks. I had already found my buyer, David Park, a real estate developer I'd been introduced to through Catherine. Park had done his due diligence, made his offer, and we had signed the letter of intent at $2.2 million. All I was waiting for was the lease to conclude cleanly, so I could hand the building over without complication. The meeting with the bank manager was routine. Handshakes, paperwork, a brief walk through the commercial unit. Everything in order. 11 years of clean history between us. The manager shook my hand at the door and said, "It's been a pleasure, Mr. Cole." I walked back to my car feeling something I rarely let myself feel before a thing was finished. Relief. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment with the window down, watching the street move through its ordinary morning. A delivery truck. A woman walking a dog. The kind of quiet Tuesday that doesn't announce itself as the day your life changes. My phone rang. Shh. Gerald. I answered the way I always answered his calls, expecting nothing except his voice and a few minutes of easy conversation. Ray. His voice was warm. The Sunday call voice. "Got a minute?" "Sure," I said. "What's going on?" He paused. Not long, just a beat. The kind of pause a man takes when he's been rehearsing something and is deciding whether to use the rehearsed version or improvise. He chose the rehearsed version. "I've been thinking," he said, "about the Manhattan property." Shh. I went still. I think we both know I helped this family financially over the years in ways that never got properly acknowledged. The money I put in back in 2009, I was never asking for anything back, Ray. You know that. But now that there's a sale on the table, it feels like the right time to have a real conversation. Between brothers. Before lawyers get involved and things get expensive. He kept talking. I stopped hearing the words. I was sitting outside the building I had owned for 11 years, funded entirely from my own account, documented by my attorney before Gerald even knew it existed. And my brother was telling me, in his warmest voice, that he had a financial claim against it. I thought about the 2 dinners, the Sunday calls, the hospital chair. I thought about my study, the filing drawer. I hear you, Gerald, I said. Let me think about it. Of course, he said. Take your time. I just want to resolve this between us. Family first, right? Right, I said. Family first. I hung up. Sat in the car for a long time. The delivery truck was gone. The woman with the dog was gone. The street had moved on without me. I drove home and didn't call anyone. The next 48 hours were the quietest of my life. I didn't eat much. Didn't sleep properly. I sat in the same chair in the living room for long stretches, watching the light change through the window, asking myself the same question over and over in different forms. Not about the money, not about the documents, about the hospital room, about the hand holding mine. Was any of it real? My neighbor Walter Hines noticed the lights on at 3 in the morning and came over the next day. Walter was 71, a retired schoolteacher, and had known both Cole brothers for over 40 years. He stood in my kitchen doorway with his hands in his pockets and looked at me the way a man looks at someone he's been worried about for longer than the current crisis. Talk, he said. I told him everything. The property, the Sunday calls, the hospital, Gerald's phone call outside the bank. Walter was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Ray, I have to tell you something I should have pushed harder on before. During Gerald's second visit to my home, Walter had been returning a tool he borrowed. He came around the back and looked through the kitchen window to see if I was inside before knocking. I was at the stove. Gerald was not in the kitchen with me. Shh. Gerald was in my study. Standing at the open filing drawer. Walter had thought nothing of it at the time. Brothers, family visit. Maybe he was looking for a pen. He'd mentioned it to me once, casually. I'd dismissed it just as casually. He watched my face as he told me now. I know, I said. You were right. Walter didn't say I told you so. He put the kettle on and sat down across from me. Tell me what you need, he said. I picked up my phone and called Catherine Marsh. Catherine had been my attorney for 19 years. She was precise, thorough, and entirely unimpressed by things designed to impress her. I told her what Gerald had said. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, Raymond, I need you to come in tomorrow. Bring nothing. Shh. I already have everything. Everything turned out to be the complete purchase history of the Manhattan property, the original deed, the 2009 financial records showing my personal account funded the purchase in full, every tax filing, every lease document, all of it notarized and time-stamped under my name alone, filed in her office since the week I bought the building. Gerald had gone through my study looking for the original paperwork. What he found and took were the accessible copies I kept at home. Shh. Not the originals. The originals had never left Catherine's office. Gerald had stolen decoys without knowing it. Catherine had also done something else. The moment I described Gerald's claim, she requested a full review of the loan document Gerald had filed, the fabricated 2009 agreement alleging I owed him $600,000. Her investigator found the notary stamp within 48 hours. The license number on that stamp belonged to a notary whose certification had been revoked. Shh. In 2011, the notarization had never happened. The document was not just fabricated. It was provably, criminally fraudulent. Catherine set the investigator's report on the desk between us and looked at me. This isn't a civil dispute anymore, she said. I know, I said. Raymond. He did this 3 weeks after you came home from the hospital. I know that too. She looked at me for a moment. Then she picked up her phone. While Catherine was building the counterfiling, my phone rang again. David Park. He didn't bother with small talk. "Raymond, someone called my office this morning. Introduced himself as your brother. Said he was a co-stakeholder in the Upper West Side property. Said the sale might have legal complications." I closed my eyes briefly. "He's not a co-stakeholder," I said. "He has no legal connection to that property." "I assumed as much," Park said. "I've seen this before, someone trying to cloud a title before closing. My lawyer has already documented the call date, time, everything Gerald said, exactly how he represented himself." He paused. "I'm not pausing the sale, Raymond. But I want you to know what he did, and I want you to have whatever you need from us." I thanked him. After I hung up, I sat quietly for a moment. Gerald had called the buyer of my $2.2 million property and introduced himself as a co-stakeholder. He had created a paper trail connecting himself directly to an act of deliberate interference in an active real estate transaction using a legal claim that was built on a forged document with a fraudulent notary stamp. Shh. He thought he was applying pressure. He was building my case. 2 days later, Gerald called again. Same warm voice. Asking if I'd had time to think. Asking if we could talk numbers. Saying he just wanted to resolve this quietly, between brothers, before things got complicated. I let him finish. Then I said, "Gerald, I want you to know something. While you were sitting at my kitchen table eating the dinner I made you, you went through my study. You went through my filing drawer, while I was in the kitchen making you coffee." Shh. Silence on his end. "I know what you took," I said. "I know what you did with it, and I know about the notary stamp." The silence went longer. "Catherine will be in touch," I said. "Don't call me again." I hung up. 3 days later, Catherine filed the counter-response. The original 2009 financial records. The notary fraud report, David Park's documented statement. Everything simultaneously in a single filing that left no gaps. 4 days after that, Gerald received a letter that did not come from Catherine's office. Shh. It came from the district attorney. The fraudulent notary stamp had triggered a criminal referral. Gerald was no longer defending a civil claim. He was responding to a fraud investigation. His lawyer called him that afternoon and withdrew from the case. Gerald found new counsel. His new lawyer was competent but was working with nothing. Every document Gerald had built his claim on had been dismantled. Every move he had made had been documented by someone. Catherine, Park, Walter, the DA's investigator. The hearing was brief by the standards of these things. Gerald's lawyer presented the fabricated loan agreement. Catherine placed the original 2009 financial records, the notary fraud report, and Park's written statement on the table simultaneously. 3 documents. Side by side, the judge reviewed them without speaking. Then he looked up at Gerald. "Mr. Cole," he said, "are you aware that the notary stamp on this document belongs to a license that was revoked in 2011? Shh. Gerald looked at his lawyer. His lawyer said nothing. Walter Hines took the stand after. He described what he had seen through my kitchen window during Gerald's second visit. The open filing drawer, Gerald's hands in it, the date and time, what Gerald was wearing. He spoke the way a man speaks when he has known the truth for a long time and is finally being asked to say it out loud. 40 years of knowing both brothers in every word. Then David Park sat in the witness box in a suit that cost more than Gerald's remaining legal fees and read calmly from his lawyer's documented account of the call. Gerald's exact words. Co-stakeholder. Legal complications. A $2.2 million buyer. Completely unintimidated, reading Gerald's own words back to a courtroom. Gerald stared at the table. The judge ruled in my favor on every count. The criminal fraud charge was referred for formal prosecution. Gerald faced a permanent record, a substantial fine, and probation. I was not in the courtroom when it happened. I was at the Manhattan apartment. The bank had completed off-boarding the week before. The building was quiet in a way it hadn't been in 11 years. No staff, no business hours, just empty rooms and the particular stillness of a place between one life and another. I walked through slowly. The commercial unit downstairs, the 2 bedrooms upstairs, the window in the back room that looked out over a narrow alley toward the next building. I had stood at that window once in 2004 with the purchase documents in my hand, telling myself it was an investment. I stood there again now. My phone rang. "Catherine." "It's done," she said. I looked out at the alley. A pigeon landed on the opposite windowsill and sat there, indifferent to everything. "Send me the closing documents," I said. The sale closed 4 days later. Catherine was there. Walter drove me to the office and waited outside in the car, engine off, reading a paperback he'd brought without mentioning it. When I came out, he looked up. "Didn't ask about the number. You good?" he said. "Yeah, Walter," I said. "I'm good." He nodded and started the car. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Gerald's handwriting on the envelope. I recognized it immediately. The same careful penmanship from birthday cards decades ago. The same slight leftward lean. I opened it, read it once. He said he got desperate. Said he didn't think it would go this far. Said the family was asking questions he didn't know how to answer. Asked if there was any way back. I folded the letter. Put it in my filing drawer, the same drawer he had gone through in my study while I was making him coffee. Shh. I never responded. Walter mentioned him once, a few weeks after that. Carefully, watching my face. Said Gerald was struggling. Not financially destroyed, but diminished. The fraud charge. The family knowing the full story. The reputation that follows a man who forged documents to steal from his brother 3 weeks after visiting him in the hospital. I was quiet for a moment. "He did that to himself, Walter," I said. "I didn't do that to him." Walter nodded. Said nothing else about it. With part of the $2.2 million, I set up a small scholarship at the local college in my late wife's name. The Margaret Cole Memorial Scholarship. For students the way she had been, first in her family, not much money, more capability than anyone around them recognized. She would have said it was too much. I would have told her it wasn't enough. We would have argued about it pleasantly for 20 minutes, and then she would have smiled and said, "Fine." I bought the small house in Vermont that Margaret and I had driven past once in 1987, and said someday. 38 years is a long someday. But I got there. Sunday mornings are quiet now. No calls coming. No warm voice on the other end asking how I'm doing. Building towards something I couldn't see. Just the morning, the coffee, the porch, the street doing its ordinary thing. Water waves from across the way. I raise my mug. Gerald thought my silence after that phone call meant I was afraid. He thought the 48 hours I went quiet meant I was crumbling. He had spent so long watching people fold under pressure that he had forgotten some men go quiet, not because they have nothing left, but because they are deciding exactly what to do next. He never understood that silence was how I worked. He came into my home, sat at my table, ate the dinner I made him, and decided that what was mine should be his. He forgot that I had been watching him do that our whole lives. I didn't take anything from Gerald. I just didn't let him take anything from me. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from.